The priest asked if anyone objected to this marriage, and I almost raised my own hand. But then I saw the way Kalen's jaw tightened, felt the weight of his family's guns in the pews behind me, and remembered the Corvino threat that had killed his father and would come for my family next if I didn't say, "I do." So I didn't object. I stood there in my mother's vintage lace, the dress she'd worn when she married my father in a deal just like this one, and I kept my mouth shut. Kalen Moretti stood beside me in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage, his dark eyes fixed on the priest like this was just another business transaction. Which, I supposed, it was. His hand was steady when he took mine. Mine trembled, not from desire, from rage. "Aurelia Vale," the priest intoned. "Do you take this man?" I caught movement in the third pew, Lucian, my 15-year-old brother, leaning forward with that new light in his eyes. The same light I'd seen in boys at his school who talked about gangs and power and respect. He was watching Kalen the way other kids watched athletes. My stomach turned. "I do," I said. The words tasted like ash. Kalen's fingers tightened fractionally around mine. If I hadn't been studying him for the past 2 weeks, ever since he'd walked into my father's office and turned my life into a countdown, I wouldn't have noticed. But I had been studying him, learning his tells, mapping his control, because in exactly 1 year, I was going to use the loophole I'd found in Clause 17 of the original pact, and I was going to divorce him and take my family somewhere his world couldn't reach us. "You may kiss the bride." Kalen turned to me with the same measured precision he used for everything. His hand came up to cup my jaw, tilting my face toward his, and for 1 second I saw something flicker in those dark eyes, something that wasn't cold calculation. Then his mouth was on mine. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't sweet. It was a claim, pure and simple, and my body, traitor that it was, responded with a rush of heat that made my knees weak. His other hand settled at the small of my back, pulling me closer, and the kiss deepened into something that made the church feel too small and too hot. When he pulled back, his thumb brushed my lower lip. "Wife," he said quietly, just that one word. I couldn't breathe. Behind us, his men applauded. My mother cried softly in the front pew, and Lucian grinned like Christmas had come early. 3 weeks earlier, I'd been alone in the Vale Architecture and Development office at 11 p.m., trying to restructure a loan payment we couldn't afford, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. Your father's office. Don't be late. CM. I'd stared at those initials until my vision blurred. Kalen Moretti. I hadn't seen him since my father's funeral 6 months ago, where he'd stood at a distance in an expensive black coat and watched our family fall apart with the same expression he probably used to watch paint dry. My father had worked with his father for 20 years. Partnership, they'd called it. I called it extortion with a handshake. When I arrived the next morning, Kalen was already sitting in my father's chair. The audacity of it nearly made me walk back out. He looked up from a folder thick with documents. "Aurelia, sit. That's my father's chair. Your father's dead." His voice was flat, factual. "The chair's just a chair. Sit down." I stayed standing. "What do you want?" He studied me for a long moment, and I felt uncomfortably aware of my hastily tied hair, my wrinkled blouse, the coffee stain on my sleeve from pulling an all-nighter. Kalen, by contrast, looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Tailored navy suit. Perfect Windsor knot. Not a hair out of place. "The Corvino family made a move last night," he said. "They hit one of our shipping routes and sent a very clear message. They're coming for what's left of the alliance your father and mine built. That's your problem. It's yours too." He opened the folder and slid a document across the desk. "The pact. Read Clause 9. I didn't want to touch anything he'd touched, but I made myself cross the room and pick up the paper. My hands left damp fingerprints on the edges. Clause 9 was highlighted in yellow. In the event of sustained external threat to either family's interests, the alliance shall be reinforced through marriage between the Moretti heir and the eldest unmarried Vale daughter. Said marriage to occur before the daughter's 25th birthday. The words swam. "No," I said. "Yes. My father wouldn't." "Your father signed this when you were 3 years old." Kalen stood, moving around the desk with predatory grace. He knew exactly what he was agreeing to. And your 25th birthday is in 43 days. I looked up at him. He was taller than I'd realized. Broader. There was a scar at his temple I'd never noticed before. Thin and white. You can't enforce this, I said. It's not legal. It's ironclad. He took the document from my shaking hands. I had 3 separate law firms review it. Your father made sure there were no exits, Aurelia. He knew the Corvinos would never stop coming, and he knew the only thing that would hold them back was blood between our families. I won't do it. Then your mother loses this building. Your siblings lose their home. Dorian loses the business license. And when the Corvinos come, and they will come, you'll all be alone. He stepped closer. Is that what you want? What I want, I said through my teeth, is for you and your entire world to disappear. Something almost like amusement crossed his face. That's not one of your options. Then what are my options? 1. You marry me before your birthday. We present a united front. I protect your family and you fulfill your father's promise. The room felt airless. And if I refuse? He tilted his head slightly. I don't think you will. You don't know me. I know you've been restructuring your family's debts for 6 months. I know you work 70-hour weeks keeping this firm afloat. I know you put Sarah through college prep and Lucian through private school on a salary that barely covers rent. His eyes held mine. I know you'd do anything to protect them, even this. I hated that he was right. I hated him. I need to see the original pact, I said. All of it. Every clause. Why? Because I don't trust you, and I don't sign anything without reading it first. For the first time, something that might have been respect flickered across his face. Fine. Tomorrow. Bring your questions. He walked out, leaving me alone in my father's office with a future I didn't want, and a countdown I couldn't stop. I spent that entire night reading the pact. Every word, every clause, every subclause and addendum and footnote. And in clause 17, buried in legal language so dense I almost missed it, I found my salvation. Either party may petition for dissolution of the marriage after 1 full year, provided no children have been conceived, and both families' territorial interests remain stable. 1 year, I could survive 1 year. I could play the dutiful wife, keep my family safe, let Kaylin's protection shield us from the Corvinos, and then I could take my loophole and run. When I walked into his office the next morning with a list of demands, he heard me out without interruption. I want security guarantees for my mother, Dorian, Sarah, and Lucian. In writing. Done. I want veto power over any decisions that directly affect the Vale firm. Conditional approval. We'll negotiate case by case. I want separate bedrooms. His jaw tightened. No. Why not? Because the Corvinos will be watching, and they'll know the difference between a real marriage and a performance. You'll sleep in my room. What we do there is negotiable. Heat flooded my face. I'm not asking you to. His voice was calm, maddeningly even. I'm asking you to share a space. Nothing more, not unless you choose it. The way he said choose made my pulse spike. Fine, I managed. Anything else? Yes. He stood and walked to where I sat, bracing his hands on the arms of my chair and leaning down until we were eye to eye. Don't lie to me, Aurelia. Not about the big things. I'll know. This close, I could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, could smell expensive cologne and something underneath it that was just him. I'll lie whenever I want, I said. His mouth curved, not quite a smile. We'll see. And God help me, I wondered what it would feel like if he kissed me. Now, standing in the reception hall of the church with Kaylin's ring heavy on my finger, I watched Lucian approach us with stars in his eyes. That was amazing, my brother said, looking at Kaylin. The way everyone you walked in and everyone went quiet, like you own the whole room. Lucian, I said sharply, but Kaylin's hand settled on my lower back, a clear signal of possession. Respect isn't ownership, Kaylin told Lucian. It's earned through consistency, through keeping your word even when it costs you. Lucian nodded eagerly. Will you teach me? Every instinct in me screamed to pull my brother away. But Kaylin looked at me, something unreadable in his expression, and said, "That's up to your sister." Before I could answer, one of his men appeared at his elbow and murmured something low and urgent. Kalen's entire demeanor shifted. The careful control turned to cold steel. "When?" he asked. 20 minutes ago. They hit the warehouse on Morgan Street. Casualties? 3 injured. No deaths. They left a message." Kalen's hand tightened on my waist. "Show me." The man handed him a phone. I caught a glimpse of the screen before Kalen angled it away. A photo of a burned shipping container with 2 words spray-painted across it in red. Void packed. Kalen's thumb moved across the screen, and he pocketed the phone with terrifying calm. "We're leaving," he said to me. "Now. The reception is over." He looked at his second-in-command. "Get the Vales to the safe house, all of them, and double the perimeter at the estate." "Wait," I said. "What's happening?" Kalen turned to me, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw something raw beneath the control. "The Corvinos just declared war on our wedding day," he said quietly. "Welcome to the family, wife." The Moretti estate looked like something out of a Gothic novel. All stone walls and iron gates and security cameras that tracked our car from the moment we turned off the main road. "This is where you live?" I asked. Kalen didn't look up from his phone. "This is where we live now." The distinction made my chest tight. We pulled through the gates, past armed guards who nodded at Kalen with military precision, and up a curved driveway to a mansion that could have housed 50 people. The lake behind it gleamed in the afternoon sun, deceptively peaceful. "My family will be here soon," I asked. "Within the hour. They'll have the west wing. You and I have the east." Of course we did. Inside, the place was all dark wood and leather furniture and artwork that probably cost more than our firm's annual revenue. A woman in her 50s appeared from a side hallway, her expression carefully neutral. "Mrs. Moretti," she said. "I'm Catherine. I manage the household. If you need anything—" "She needs her family settled comfortably," Kalen interrupted. "And she needs access to my office. Full access." Catherine's eyebrows rose fractionally. "Of course." A younger woman emerged from the hallway behind Catherine. Late 20s, sleek dark hair pulled into a perfect chignon, wearing a fitted charcoal dress that probably cost as much as my wedding gown. She carried a tablet and had the kind of polished competence that radiated from every deliberate movement. "Kalen," she said, her voice smooth. Professional, but her eyes flickered over me with an assessment that felt anything but neutral. "The files you requested are ready in your office, and Vincent needs to speak with you about the Morgan Street situation." "Thank you, Natasha." Kalen handed me a keycard without looking at the other woman. "This opens every door in the house except the server room and the armory. Don't go in either of those without me." "You have an armory," I said. "You married into a Mafia family, Aurelia." "Yes, I have an armory." The casual way he said it made me want to throw something. Natasha's lips pressed into a thin line. "Should I reschedule your 4 o'clock, since you'll be settling Mrs. Moretti in?" The way she said Mrs. Moretti made it sound like a foreign language she hadn't quite mastered. "No need," Kalen said. "Aurelia will be joining me in the office. She'll need access to the financial database and the contract archive." Natasha's tablet nearly slipped from her fingers. "The contract archive. Those files are highly confidential. She's my wife. Set up her access." "Of course." Natasha's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'll have Ike create her credentials. It may take a few hours." "You have 30 minutes, Kalen said flatly. "Aurelia?" He started toward the stairs, and I followed, acutely aware of Natasha's gaze burning into my back. His office was nothing like I'd expected. I'd pictured something cold and sterile, all chrome and glass and intimidation. Instead, it was warm, lived in. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 2 walls, filled with everything from legal text to history to what looked like poetry. A large desk sat in front of windows overlooking the lake, and the leather chair behind it was worn at the arms. I ran my fingers along the desk's edge and found myself wondering what it would be like to work here, to have this kind of space and quiet and resources, to have power. "You approve?" I spun around. Kalen stood in the doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled to his elbows. The casual version of him was somehow more dangerous than the suited one. It's not what I expected, I admitted. What did you expect? Something colder. He moved into the room, closing the door behind him. My father built this office. He believed you think better when you're comfortable. He gestured to the desk. Sit. It's your desk. It's our desk now. Sit down, Aurelia. The command in his voice sent heat down my spine that I absolutely did not want to examine. I sat. He rounded the desk and pulled up a second chair beside mine, not across from me, beside me, and opened a laptop. The Corvinos hit us at the Morgan Street warehouse, he said. All business now. They knew exactly where and when to strike, which means either they've been watching us for weeks or someone told them. A leak. Yes. He pulled up a file. These are all the contracts associated with that warehouse. Vale Firm handled the original build-out 3 years ago. I need you to look for anything unusual. Any subcontractors you don't recognize. Any payments that don't add up. I stared at the screen. You want me to find your leak. I want you to use your skills. You know contracts better than anyone on my team. You'll spot things they'd miss. It was a test. I knew it was a test. But looking at those files, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Useful. Needed for something more than just keeping my family's head above water. I'll need access to your financial records too, I said. Cross-reference payments and timelines. You'll have it. And I want to talk to whoever managed the security protocols. His mouth curved slightly. Anything else, Mrs. Moretti? The name on his lips made my stomach flip. Yes, I said, meeting his eyes. I want your word that if I find something, you won't kill anyone. The amusement vanished. That's not how this works. Then make it how it works. I didn't look away. I won't help you find a leak if you're just going to execute them. Even if that leak cost my men their lives? Even then, ruin them, destroy them financially, exile them, but no killing. We stared at each other. I could feel my pulse in my throat. Finally, he said, You have my word. No executions. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen what I do instead. That should have scared me. Instead, it made me curious in a way that probably said terrible things about who I was becoming. I turned to the screen and started reading. A knock interrupted us 20 minutes later. Come in, Kaylin said, without looking up. Natasha entered with a coffee service on a silver tray. She set it on the desk with practiced efficiency, her movements fluid and familiar, like she'd done this 1,000 times. Your credentials are ready, Mrs. Moretti, she said, handing me a card with barely concealed reluctance. Though I should mention that these files are usually handled by someone with more experience in our operations. Aurelia has plenty of experience, Kaylin said, mildly. Of course, I just meant Natasha's smile was razor sharp. That if you need any guidance navigating our systems, I've been managing Kaylin's files for 5 years. I know exactly where everything is. The possessiveness in her voice was unmistakable. I'm sure I'll manage, I said. Natasha poured Kaylin's coffee without asking how he took it. 2 sugars, no cream, I noticed, and set it at his elbow. Her fingers brushed his shoulder briefly as she stepped back. Anything else you need? She asked him, not me. We're fine, Natasha, thank you. She left, but not before shooting me one last assessing look that made me feel like I'd just failed some invisible test. How long has she worked for you? I asked when the door closed. Since my father died. She was his assistant first. Kaylin took a sip of coffee. She's extremely competent, loyal, discreet. And in love with you. He looked up sharply. What? She's in love with you. You really haven't noticed? Natasha is professional, that's all. I laughed, surprised by how bitter it sounded. The way she looks at you is not professional, Kaylin. And the way she looks at me is like I'm an obstacle she's trying to figure out how to remove. You're reading too much into, I read people for a living. Contractors, clients, lenders. I have to know who's lying, who's desperate, who wants something they're not saying. Natasha wants you, and she hates that I'm here. Kaylin set down his coffee cup with deliberate care. Even if that were true, it doesn't matter. She works for me. That's all she'll ever be. Does she know that? She should. Should isn't the same as does. He studied me for a long moment. Does it bother you? The question caught me off guard. Why would it bother me? You tell me, my face heated. I don't care who wants you. This marriage is temporary anyway. Something flickered in his eyes. Is it? Before I could answer, he turned back to the screen. Keep working. We don't have much time. I wanted to push, to ask what he meant, but instead I focused on the contracts and tried to ignore the tight feeling in my chest that felt uncomfortably like jealousy. 4 hours later, I'd found 3 irregularities. Here, I pointed to a subcontractor payment. This company, Westside Industrial, they did electrical work, but their invoice is 40% higher than industry standard. And look at the payment date. Kalen leaned closer, his shoulder brushing mine. 2 days before the Corvinos knew about our new security system. Exactly. And here, same company, different project 6 months ago. Right before the Corvinos hit your storage facility on Kedzie. Pattern, he murmured. Pattern, I agreed. Westside Industrial is either overcharging you massively or they're being paid to feed information. He was already pulling up another screen. Westside is a shell company, registered to... He went quiet. What? His jaw worked. It's registered to someone in my organization, someone I trusted. The way he said it made my chest ache. I'm sorry, I said quietly. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Surprise. You're sorry? You trusted them. That hurts. For a long moment, he just studied my face. Then he reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering against my cheek. You're not what I expected either, he said softly. My breath caught. The door burst open. We sprang apart like teenagers caught making out, and one of Kalen's men, the same one from the church, stopped short. Sorry, boss, but the veils are here, and the kid is asking questions. Kalen's hand dropped from my face. Which kid? The 15-year-old, Lucian. He wants to know where you keep your guns. Of course he did. I stood so fast my chair rolled backward. I'll handle it. Aurelia. He's my brother, I said sharply. I'll handle it. Kalen rose, his expression unreadable. Then handle it together. He needs to hear certain things from me. I wanted to argue, but the truth was, Lucian hadn't listened to me about anything in months. Maybe he'd listened to Kalen. Maybe that was exactly what I should be afraid of. I found Lucian in the main hallway, staring at a painting of what I assumed was Kalen's father. Same dark eyes, same sharp jaw, but older, harder. Luce, I said. He didn't turn around. Is this the guy the Corvinos killed? Yes. How'd they do it? Lucian, I want to know. Kalen's voice came from behind me. Car bomb. Outside a restaurant where he was meeting with city officials. He died instantly. 3 other people died with him, including a waitress who was 22 years old and engaged to be married. Lucian finally turned. His eyes were too bright, too hungry. Did you make them pay? I made them regret it, Kalen said evenly. But no amount of revenge brings back the dead. Not my father, not that waitress. No one. That's not what Dad used to say. My blood went cold. What did Dad say? Lucian shrugged. That power means making people pay. That respect comes from fear. I looked at Kalen, desperate for him to contradict it. To tell my brother that our father was wrong. Instead, Kalen said, Your father understood one kind of power. But there are others. The power to build things, to protect things. To know when violence serves a purpose and when it just creates more bodies. But you still use violence, Lucian challenged. Yes, when I have to. But it's not the first tool I reach for. He gestured to me. Your sister just helped me identify a security leak. She used her mind, her skills. That's power too. Maybe more valuable than anything in my armory. Lucian looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Really? He asked. Really, Kalen said. She's the smartest person in this house. Don't forget that. Something loosened in my chest. Can I still see the armory? Lucienne asked hopefully. No, I said. Maybe when you're 18, Kalen added. If you've earned it. Lucian grinned. Deal. He wandered off toward the west wing, and I was left alone with my husband in a hallway that suddenly felt too small. Thank you, I said. For what? For not making him worse. Kalen stepped closer. I'm not going to lie to him, Aurelia. This world is violent. He needs to understand that. But he doesn't need to worship it. No, Kaylin agreed. He doesn't. We stood there, inches apart, and I felt the same pull I'd felt in his office. The same dangerous curiosity. I should check on my mother, I said. You should. Neither of us moved. Aurelia, he said quietly. What we're doing here, this alliance, this marriage, it only works if we're honest with each other. I've been honest. Have you? My heart hammered. Did he know about the loophole? Had I given something away? I found you a leak, I said instead. That's honest. Work. It is. His hand came up to cut my jaw, the same way he had at the altar. And I'm grateful. But I think you're still planning your escape. And I think you're going to be disappointed when you realize I won't let you go that easily. He kissed me before I could answer. Not like at the ceremony, this was slower, deeper. A claiming that felt like a question and a warning all at once. His other hand slid to my waist, pulling me against him, and I made a sound I didn't recognize as my own. When he pulled back, I was breathing hard. That wasn't fair, I managed. No, he agreed. But it was honest. He walked away, leaving me alone in the hallway with my racing heart and the taste of him still on my lips, and the distinct awareness that someone was watching. I turned to find Natasha at the end of the corridor, a stack of folders in her arms and an expression on her face that could have cut glass. Our eyes met. She didn't say anything, just turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. But I felt the warning as clearly as if she'd spoken it aloud. That night, I lay in his bed, our bed, staring at the ceiling while Kaylin worked at his desk across the room. He'd been right about one thing. The Corvinos would know if we slept separately, so here I was, in a silk nightgown Catherine had left on the bed, trying to pretend I wasn't hyper-aware of every sound he made. You don't have to stay up, I said. I'm almost done. What are you working on? Deciding what to do about our leak. I rolled onto my side to look at him. I thought you weren't going to kill them. I'm not, but I am going to make sure they never work in this city again. He glanced at me. Does that bother you? Should it? I don't know. You tell me. I thought about it. They sold you out. They put your men in danger. They knew what they were doing. So it doesn't bother you. I didn't say that. I sat up, pulling my knees to my chest. I don't like that this is my life now. I don't like that I'm married to someone who has to worry about leaks and bombs and wars. I don't like that my little brother looks at you like you're a hero. But I understand it. And I don't know what that says about me. Kaylin closed his laptop and stood. For a horrible, wonderful moment, I thought he was going to cross the room and kiss me again. Instead, he said, "It says you're adapting. That's good. You'll need to." Why? Because tomorrow you're coming with me to a meeting with the Corvino family's lawyer, and you're going to help me negotiate a ceasefire. My pulse spiked. Why me? Because you see things I miss, and because I want them to know exactly what kind of wife I married. He moved to the door. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. You should rest. Kaylin. He paused, hand on the doorframe. Thank you, I said, for giving me space. His smile was small, almost sad. I don't want you in my bed because you feel trapped, Aurelia. When you end up there, I want it to be because you chose it. He left before I could tell him that was exactly what scared me most. I was alone for maybe 3 minutes before another knock came. Come in, I called, expecting Catherine. Natasha stepped inside, still in her tailored dress, still perfectly composed. But there was something sharp in her eyes now, something unguarded. Mrs. Moretti, she said, I'm sorry to disturb you. Kaylin asked me to bring you these. She held up a folder. Background files on the Corvino family. For tomorrow's meeting. I pulled the sheet higher. You could have left them outside. I could have. She moved into the room, setting the folder on the bedside table with deliberate slowness. But I thought we should talk, woman to woman. About the fact that you don't belong here. Her voice was still professional, but barely. You don't understand this world. You don't understand him. And whatever you think this marriage is, it won't last. That's not your concern. Kaylin is my concern. I've been by his side since his father died. I've helped him build everything he has. And then you show up because of some old contract, and suddenly I'm supposed to give you access to files I've spent years protecting. I met her eyes. You're in love with him. I'm loyal to him. There's a difference. Is there? Her composure cracked, just for a second. I know him, what he needs, what he wants. And it's not some terrified girl playing house while she counts down the days until she can run. The loophole. She knew about the loophole. My face must have given me away because Natasha smiled, cold and triumphant. You think you're so smart, but Kaylin knows everything that happens in this house. Every file you read. Every clause you study. Did you really think he wouldn't notice you looking at dissolution terms? My stomach dropped. Get out, I said quietly. Gladly. She moved to the door, then paused. One more thing. That leak you found today? Very impressive. But you should ask yourself why Kaylin needed you to find it. Why he couldn't find it himself with all his resources. She tilted her head. Unless he already knew. And he was testing you. She left before I could respond. I sat there in the dark, my mind racing, wondering if anything about today had been real. Wondering if Kaylin had been playing me from the start. I didn't sleep. I lay there replaying every moment from the day. Kaylin's hand on my face. The way he'd said, our desk. The kiss in the hallway. Natasha's cold smile when she told me he already knew about the loophole. Had any of it been real? Or was I just another piece on his chessboard, moving exactly where he wanted me to go? When dawn broke, I gave up on sleep and showered, dressing in one of the outfits Catherine had hung in the closet. A slate gray pencil skirt and the silk blouse that made me look older, sharper. More like someone who belonged in a negotiation with the Corvino family's lawyer. Kaylin was already downstairs when I found him, dressed in a navy suit that fit like armor. He looked up from his phone when I entered the kitchen. You're ready early, he said. I couldn't sleep. Neither could I. We stared at each other across the marble island, and I wondered if he could see the doubt written all over my face. Aurelia. Did you already know about the leak? I asked. He went still. What? The leak. Westside Industrial. Did you already know and you were just testing me? Who told you that? It doesn't matter, did you? Kaylin set down his phone with careful precision. I suspected something was wrong with those contracts. I didn't know what. You found the pattern I missed. That's the truth. But you could have found it yourself. Maybe, eventually. But you found it in 4 hours. He moved around the island toward me. I'm not going to apologize for using your skills, Aurelia. That's what partnership means. Partnership, I repeated. Is that what this is? What else would it be? A test, a game, a way to keep me busy while you decide if I'm useful enough to keep around past my 1-year expiration date. His expression darkened. You think I married you as some kind of experiment? I think you married me because a piece of paper said you had to, and now you're trying to figure out what to do with me. You want to know what I'm trying to figure out? He stepped closer, crowding me against the counter. I'm trying to figure out why my wife spent last night studying dissolution clauses instead of sleeping. I'm trying to figure out why she keeps 1 foot out the door even when she's standing right in front of me. I'm trying to figure out, how did you know I was reading dissolution clauses? His jaw clenched. Natasha told you. So it's true. You're monitoring what I read. I monitor everything in this house. That's how I keep people alive. People or prisoners? The muscle in his jaw jumped. If you were a prisoner, you wouldn't have full access to my files. You wouldn't be coming with me today. And you sure as hell wouldn't be sleeping in a separate bed because I'm trying to give you space to choose. Choose what? Me, he said roughly. This? Us. Instead of counting down days until you can run. The confession hung between us like a live wire. Kaylin. A sharp knock interrupted whatever I was about to say. Natasha stepped in, her expression professionally neutral. The car's ready, and the Corvinos confirmed the meeting location. Giordano's, the private room. Thank you, Kaylin said, without looking at her. Natasha's gaze slid to me, lingering just long enough to make her point. Then she left. We're not done with this conversation, Kaylin said. No, I agreed. We're not. Giordano's was the kind of restaurant where they didn't list prices on the menu, and the waitstaff moved like ghosts. The private room in the back had bulletproof glass. I noticed that immediately. And a table set for 6. Kaylin's hand settled at the small of my back as we walked in, the touch both possessive and protective. 3 people were already seated. The man at the head of the table was in his 60s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, wearing a suit that screamed old money. His lawyer sat to his right, younger, maybe 40, with the kind of bland face that made him forgettable. And to his left sat a woman. She was beautiful in that cold, untouchable way. Blonde hair pulled back severely, red lips, designer everything. But it was the way she looked at the silver-haired man that made my stomach sink. This wasn't just a lawyer and a representative. This was family. Moretti, the man said, standing. And the new bride, how domestic. Salvatore, Kaylin replied evenly. You know why we're here. To beg for a ceasefire? Salvatore Corvino's smile didn't reach his eyes. After you married the Veil Girl, to strengthen your position. To negotiate terms that keep Chicago from turning into a war zone. Ah, negotiate. Salvatore gestured to the blonde woman. You remember my daughter, Isabel? She's been managing our operations in New York. Quite successfully. Isabel's smile was pure ice. Kaylin, it's been a long time. Something passed between them, some history I didn't know. Kaylin's hand tightened on my waist. Isabel, I didn't know you were back. Father called me home when he heard about your marriage. Her gaze raked over me. I wanted to meet the woman who finally got you to the altar. The Veil Girl, wasn't it? Your fathers drew up that quaint little pact years ago. Aurelia, Kaylin said. My wife's name is Aurelia. Of course. Isabel's tone suggested she'd forget it the moment we left. How romantic. A marriage of obligation. Shall we sit? Salvatore interrupted smoothly. We have much to discuss. We took our seats across from them. Kaylin's lawyer appeared from somewhere, a thin man named Douglas, who immediately started laying out terms. But I wasn't listening to him. I was watching the way Isabel watched Kaylin, the way her fingers toyed with her wine glass, the way she leaned forward just slightly when he spoke, like she was hanging on every word. She didn't just know him, she'd been with him. Which brings us to the Morgan Street incident, Douglas was saying. Our client maintains that the attack was unprovoked and… Unprovoked? Salvatore laughed. You annexed 3 blocks of territory that belonged to neutral parties. Parties we had agreements with. Those agreements died with your father's former associate, Kaylin said. The same associate who planted a bomb in my father's car. The temperature in the room dropped. Careful, Salvatore said softly. Accusations like that require proof. I have proof. Financial records, witness statements, a paper trail that leads directly back to your organization. I glanced at Kaylin. He hadn't mentioned any of this to me. Salvatore's expression didn't change. Then perhaps we should discuss reparations for the lives your father destroyed in his pursuit of power. My father protected this city. Your family tried to tear it apart. Your father, Isabel cut in, her voice like cut glass, was a brutal man who built his empire on fear and blood. Let's not pretend he was some kind of hero, Kaylin. You know better. Kaylin's hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard enough that I felt his tension. This isn't about the past, he said. This is about preventing more bloodshed. Then perhaps, Salvatore said, you should have thought of that before you married the Veil Girl and made yourself a bigger target. I spoke before I could stop myself. The marriage strengthens the alliance. It protects both families' interests. Attacking us now would violate the accords your own father signed. Every eye turned to me. Salvatore tilted his head. The accords. You've read them? Every page, including the neutrality clauses and the consequence frameworks. I met his gaze steadily. If you escalate this conflict, you're not just fighting the Morettis. You're fighting every family that signed those accords. And you'll lose. Silence. Then Salvatore smiled. Smart girl. Did you train her to say that, Moretti? She doesn't need training, Kaylin said. She's smarter than anyone in this room. Isabel's laugh was sharp. How sweet. Though I remember a time when you had very different taste in companions. The implication was clear. My face heated, but I kept my voice level. I'm not interested in Kaylin's past relationships. I'm interested in preventing a war that would destroy the legitimate businesses both our families depend on. The Vale firm handles construction contracts worth millions. If this territory dispute escalates, those contracts disappear. Your real estate holdings lose value. Everyone loses. Unless, Isabel said slowly, someone were to acquire those contracts, consolidate the territory under one family's control. You can't acquire what doesn't exist, I said. Burn down the city and there's nothing left to rule. Salvatore studied me for a long moment. You make a compelling argument, Mrs. Moretti. Then accept the ceasefire, reinstate the territorial boundaries as they stood before Morgan Street, and we move forward. On one condition, Salvatore said. Kalen's grip on my hand turned painful. What condition? Proof of the marriage's legitimacy. Salvatore's smile was cruel. The pact requires not just a wedding, but an heir. You have 1 year to produce evidence that this marriage is more than just a legal fiction. My heart stopped. That's not in the pact, I said. Isn't it? Salvatore nodded to his lawyer, who slid a document across the table. I grabbed it before Kalen could, scanning the dense text until I found it. Clause 23, subsection 4. The alliance shall be considered binding upon the birth of legitimate issue from said union, or upon the first anniversary of marriage, whichever comes first. That's a confirmation clause, I said, not a requirement. Semantics, Isabel said. The intent is clear. Real marriages produce children, unless. Her eyes gleamed. Unless this is just a business arrangement, in which case the pact is void, and we're free to pursue our interests however we see fit. Kalen stood abruptly. This meeting is over. Is it? Salvatore remained seated. Because from where I sit, you have a choice. Prove this marriage is real by producing an heir, or watch the ceasefire crumble. And when it does, the Corvinos will not be bound by any accords, including the ones protecting your wife's family. The threat was unmistakable. You have 3 months, Salvatore continued. If Mrs. Moretti isn't pregnant by then, we'll know this marriage is a fraud, and we'll act accordingly. Aurelia, Kalen said tightly, we're leaving. I stood on shaking legs, my mind racing through possibilities, loopholes, ways out. There weren't any. As we walked to the door, Isabel's voice followed us. It was good to see you again, Kalen. I hope your little arrangement works out, though I doubt it will. Outside, the air felt too thin. Kalen's driver pulled up immediately, and we climbed into the back seat in silence. The partition rose, sealing us in our own private nightmare. 3 months, I said. They want me pregnant in 3 months. They want to back us into a corner, force us to... He stopped. To have sex, I finished. To make this real. I won't force you into anything. Then what do we do? Kalen's jaw worked. We find another way. There is no other way. You read that clause. If we don't produce an heir, or at least proof that we're trying, the ceasefire collapses. The Corvinos go after my family. I'll increase their protection, move them somewhere safe. For how long? A year? 5 years? Forever? I shook my head. That's not a life, Kalen. That's a prison. Better a prison than dead. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the same trapped desperation I felt. There has to be another way, I said. Something in the contracts, some loophole or clause we missed. I've had lawyers review that pact for years. If there was a way out, I would have found it. Then let me look. Give me access to everything, the original pact, all the amendments, every piece of correspondence between our fathers. There has to be something. He studied me. You really think you can find what I couldn't? I found your leak in 4 hours. A muscle in his jaw jumped. Fine, you'll have everything. But Aurelia, what? Even if you find a loophole, even if there's a way out of this specific demand, the Corvinos aren't going to stop. They're looking for any excuse to break the alliance and come after us. I know. So what's your endgame? Find a legal escape, and then what? Divorce me after a year like you planned? Take your family and disappear? The question hung between us, heavy, with everything unsaid. I don't know, I admitted. I don't know anymore. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. That's the first honest thing you've said all day. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it and went pale. What? I asked. It's your brother, Lucian. He's missing. The drive back to the estate took 15 minutes that felt like hours. Kalen was on the phone the entire time, barking orders, demanding updates, his free hand clenched into a fist on his thigh. When was he last seen? He demanded. Where? Did anyone check the security footage? I sat frozen, my mind spiraling through terrible possibilities. Kidnapping, ransom, the Corvinos making good on their threat already. We pulled through the gates at speed, gravel spraying. Kalen was out before the car fully stopped, and I scrambled after him. My mother met us in the main hall, her face tear-streaked. He left a note, she said, thrusting a piece of paper at me with shaking hands. I read it twice before the words made sense. Went to handle something. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Handle what? I asked. I don't know. He was asking questions this morning about the Corvinos, about what they did to Kalen's father. Ice flooded my veins. Where would he go? My mother's voice broke. He's 15. He doesn't understand what these people are capable of. Kalen was already moving, his phone pressed to his ear. Pull traffic cameras for a 10-block radius. I want to know every car that left this property in the last 3 hours. One of his men appeared. Boss, the kid took one of the motorcycles from the garage. The GPS tracker shows he's downtown. Near what? Kalen demanded. Near the Corvino family's social club. My heart stopped. He's going after them, I said. He thinks he can, what? Threaten them? Make them back off. Kalen's expression was stone. He's going to get himself killed. Then we go get him. You stay here where it's safe. Like hell I do. He's my brother. Which is exactly why you're staying here. If the Corvinos take you both, they won't take either of us. I stepped into his space. You need me. Salvatore won't kill a 15-year-old kid in front of me. Not after we just negotiated a ceasefire. It would violate every code they pretend to follow. You're betting your brother's life on their honor? I'm betting on their self-interest. And I'm betting on you. I grabbed his arm. Please, let me help. He stared at me for 3 long seconds. Then, get in the car. The Corvino Social Club was in a part of downtown I'd never been to, the kind of place where storefronts had bars on the windows, and people didn't make eye contact. We pulled up in front of a brick building with no sign, just an address number and a heavy steel door. 2 men stood outside. They straightened when they saw Kalen. Moretti, one said. You're not welcome here. I'm here for the kid. The 15-year-old who walked in there 10 minutes ago. The guard's expression didn't change. Don't know what you're talking about. Kalen moved faster than I could track. 1 second he was beside me. The next he had the guard's arm twisted behind his back at an angle that made me wince. The kid, Kalen repeated. Where is he? Inside, with Mr. Corvino. Kalen released him and pushed through the door. I followed, my pulse hammering. Inside was dim and smelled like cigar smoke and old wood. A bar ran along one wall, a few men nursing drinks and watching us with predatory interest. And in the back corner, sitting across from Salvatore Corvino at a small table, was Lucian. My little brother looked very young and very scared, but he lifted his chin when he saw me. Luce, I said, my voice shaking. What did you do? Salvatore smiled. Your brother came to negotiate on your behalf. How touching. Kalen's hand settled on my shoulder, holding me back. What did he offer you? Himself, Salvatore said. He suggested that if the Corvinos required proof of loyalty from the Moretti-Vale alliance, perhaps a member of the Vale family could work for us, provide information, act as, what was the word you used, boy? Insurance? Horror crashed over me. Lucian had just tried to sell himself as a spy. He's 15, I said. He doesn't know what he's saying. On the contrary, I think he knows exactly what he's saying. Salvatore leaned back. The question is, what is his offer worth? Nothing, Kalen said. He's a child. This conversation is over. Is it? Salvatore's eyes gleamed. Because I find it interesting that the boy felt compelled to come here at all. Makes me wonder if perhaps the alliance isn't as strong as you claimed. If perhaps there are cracks we should be exploiting. There are no cracks. Then prove it. Salvatore stood. Take the boy home. But remember, 3 months, Moretti. 3 months to show me this marriage is real. And if I find out the boy approached me because your own family doubts you?" He smiled. "Well, that would be very telling, wouldn't it?" Kalen moved to Lucian, gripping his shoulder hard enough to make my brother wince. "We're leaving. Now." I followed them out, my legs shaking. In the car, Lucian burst into tears. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. I heard Mom crying about the meeting, about them threatening us. And I thought if I could make a deal." "You could have gotten yourself killed," I said, my voice raw. "Do you understand that? I was trying to help. By offering to betray us." Kalen's voice was ice. "By walking into enemy territory alone. You do it all the time. I'm not 15, and I know what I'm doing. So do I. I'm not some stupid kid who needs protecting." "Then stop acting like one," Kalen snapped. "Real power isn't about grand gestures or stupid risks. It's about patience, strategy, knowing when to move and when to wait." Lucian glared at him through tears. "You're just mad because I showed initiative. I'm furious because you put your sister in danger. You gave the Corvinos ammunition, and you proved that you're exactly what they think you are, a reckless child who can be manipulated." The words landed like punches. Lucian turned away, staring out the window. I wanted to comfort him, to tell him it would be okay, but I couldn't. Because Kalen was right, and because I was terrified of what the Corvinos would do with this information. Back at the estate, my mother took Lucian to his room. I heard her crying through the walls. I stood in the main hall, shaking. Kalen disappeared into his office without a word. I followed him. "Kalen, not now. We need to talk about the fact that your brother just handed the Corvinos proof that our alliance is unstable." He turned to face me, and the rage in his eyes made me step back. "About the fact that Salvatore now knows we're desperate enough that a 15-year-old felt compelled to offer himself as a spy? He didn't know what he was doing, exactly. He didn't know. Because you haven't told him the truth. You haven't told any of them how bad this really is. I'm trying to protect them. You're lying to them. There's a difference." The accusation hit like a slap. "I'm doing what I have to do," I said. "So am I." Kalen moved to his desk, pulling out a folder. "The Corvinos made their position clear. We have 3 months to prove this marriage is real. And thanks to your brother's stunt, they're going to be watching us even more closely. So what do you want from me?" He looked up, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. "I want you to stop planning your escape. I want you to stop treating this marriage like a temporary inconvenience. I want you to—" He stopped, jaw clenching. "To what?" "To choose this," he said roughly. "To choose us. Not because you're trapped, but because you want to." My heart hammered against my ribs. "And if I can't," I whispered, "then we're both dead. Because the Corvinos won't stop, and your loophole won't save you, and eventually, they'll find a way to tear apart everything we're trying to protect." He was right. I knew he was right. But the truth still felt like drowning. "I need time," I said. "You have 3 months. Use them wisely." He walked out, leaving me alone with a choice I didn't know how to make. I spent the next 2 hours in the office, tearing through every document I could find. The original pact, amendments, correspondence, financial records. There had to be something. Some way out that didn't require me to get pregnant or sacrifice my family or— My eyes snagged on a name I'd seen before. Westside Industrial. The shell company. The leak. But here it was again in a document dated 3 years ago. A payment authorization signed by Kalen's father to Westside Industrial for consultation services. I pulled up the contract archive and started cross-referencing. And that's when I saw it. Westside Industrial had received regular payments from Moretti Sr. for 5 years before his death. Always the same amount. Always labeled consultation. But the company was registered to someone in Kalen's organization. Someone who would have had access to Moretti Sr.'s schedule. Someone who could have known exactly where he'd be the night of the bombing. My hands shook as I pulled up the registration documents. The name stared back at me, Natasha Volkov. The door opened behind me. I spun around. Natasha stood in the doorway, her expression carefully neutral. "Working late, Mrs. Moretti?" "What is Westside Industrial?" I asked. Her smile was razor sharp. "Why don't you ask your husband?" Natasha closed the door behind her with a soft click that sounded like a gun cocking. "You're very persistent," she said. "I'll give you that. You own Westside Industrial." My voice was steady despite the adrenaline flooding my system. "The shell company that's been feeding information to the Corvinos. The same company that received payments from Kalen's father for 5 years. And Moretti Sr. died in a car bombing. A bombing that required knowing exactly where he'd be and when." I stood, keeping the desk between us. "You killed him," Natasha laughed. A genuine, delighted sound. "God, you really are smart." Kalen wasn't exaggerating. "Why? Why do you think?" "Because he was a monster. Because he built his empire on the backs of people he considered expendable. Because he treated me like furniture, useful when needed, invisible otherwise." Her expression hardened. "And because he stood in the way of what I wanted." "Kalen." "Kalen," she agreed. "I've been by his side for 7 years. I helped him rebuild after his father died. I made him into the man he is today. And then you show up with your contract and your loopholes and your doe eyes, and suddenly I'm supposed to just step aside. You killed his father to, what? Clear the way for yourself?" "I cleared the way for Kalen to become who he was meant to be, without his father's brutality and paranoia holding him back." She moved closer to the desk. "It was supposed to be me standing beside him, me helping him rule, me in his bed. He doesn't want you. He would have, eventually, if you hadn't shown up with your convenient little pact and your sharp mind and your—" She waved a hand dismissively. "Your tragic backstory about your poor dead father." My blood ran cold. "What do you know about my father?" I know he was asking too many questions, getting too close to the truth about the bombing, so I made sure the Corvinos knew exactly where to find him. Her smile was poison. Amazing how a little information in the right hands can solve so many problems. The room tilted. "My father, the heart attack they said killed him." "You murdered my father," I whispered. "I removed an obstacle. There's a difference." Rage flooded through me, hot and blinding. I lunged across the desk. Natasha was faster. She caught my wrist, twisting it until pain shot up my arm, and slammed me face down against the desk. Her other hand tangled in my hair, holding me in place. "Here's what's going to happen," she said, her voice calm, conversational. "You're going to forget everything you just learned. You're going to go to Kalen and tell him the investigation was a dead end. And you're going to very quietly disappear after your 1-year anniversary. He'll know. He'll know what I tell him. I've been managing information for him for 7 years. I know how he thinks, I know what he believes, and I know how to make you look like the threat." She pressed down harder, and I gasped. "One word from me about your loophole clause, about your plans to leave, about your brother's stupid stunt today, and Kalen will see you for what you really are, a liability. You're insane. I'm practical, and I'm giving you a choice. Walk away quietly, or I'll make sure the Corvinos know every vulnerability in Kalen's defenses, every safe house, every weakness, starting with your family." She released me, and I stumbled back, my wrist throbbing. 24 hours, Natasha said. Decide." She walked out, leaving me shaking with rage and terror. I stood there for 30 seconds, maybe a minute, my mind racing. Then I grabbed my phone and called the only person I could trust. Kalen answered on the first ring. "Aurelia? Where are you?" "In the city, following up on what's wrong. I need you to come back. Now. Don't tell anyone where you're going, especially not Natasha." Silence. Then, "I'm on my way." He hung up. I paced the office, my thoughts spiraling. Natasha killed both our fathers. She's been playing both sides. She's the leak. She's been feeding the Corvinos information to keep the war going while she consolidated power beside Kalen. And she was willing to kill to protect her position. I needed proof. Something more than just the shell company registration. Something Kalen couldn't dismiss or explain away. I turned back to the computer and started digging. Financial transfers, email archives, anything that would, there. An email from Westside Industrial to a Corvino family account, dated 2 days before Moretti Sr.'s death. Subject line, schedule confirmed. I downloaded it along with every other piece of evidence I could find, and transferred everything to a secure drive. By the time Kaylin's car pulled up outside, I had built a case that would end Natasha Volkov. He took the stairs 2 at a time, bursting into the office with his jacket half off and danger in his eyes. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. Lock the door." He did immediately. "Aurelia, you're scaring me." "Good. You should be scared." I handed him the flash drive. "I found your real leak, and it's worse than we thought." He plugged it into the computer, and I watched his face as he read through the evidence, the contracts, the payments, the emails, the timestamp on the message that pinpointed his father's location the night he died. When he looked up, his expression was carved from ice. "Natasha, she just threatened me, told me I had 24 hours to disappear, or she'd feed the Corvinos our vulnerabilities, starting with my family." "Where is she now?" "I don't know. She left about 15 minutes ago." Kaylin was already on his phone. "Find Natasha Volkov. Detain her. I don't care where she is or what she's doing. Bring her to the estate, now." He hung up and turned to me. "You're sure about this? About all of it? Look at the evidence. She owns the shell company. She received payments from your father, probably hush money to keep her quiet about something. And when that wasn't enough, she sold his location to the Corvinos." I met his eyes. "She killed him, Kaylin. And she killed my father when he started asking questions." His hands clenched into fists. "How long have you known?" "About Natasha owning Westside. An hour. About the rest, I just pieced it together." "Why didn't you come to me immediately?" "Because she cornered me before I could. And because—" I stopped. "Because what?" "Because I wasn't sure you'd believe me. She's been with you for 7 years. I've been here for 2 days." He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled me against him, his arms tight around me. "I believe you," he said into my hair. "I should have seen it. Should have questioned why she was always so territorial, why she pushed back every time I gave you access. She's good at hiding, at manipulating. Not good enough." He pulled back, his hands framing my face. "Are you really okay? Did she hurt you?" My wrist ached where she'd twisted it, but I shook my head. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You found out who killed your father. You got threatened by someone I trusted. You—" He stopped, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. "You could have run. After what she said. After everything. You could have taken your family and disappeared. I thought about it, but you didn't." "No," I said quietly. "I called you instead." Something shifted in his expression, something raw and unguarded. "Why?" "Because somewhere between the wedding and the warehouse leak and my idiot brother trying to negotiate with the Corvinos." I took a shaky breath. I stopped planning my escape, and I started planning our future. "Aurelia, I'm not saying I'm ready for everything. I'm not saying the pregnancy ultimatum doesn't terrify me. But I'm saying I choose this. I choose us. I choose—" He kissed me before I could finish. Not the claiming kiss from the hallway. Not the political kiss from the altar. This was different. Desperate and grateful and full of promises neither of us had words for. When we broke apart, I was breathing hard. "We need to deal with Natasha," I said. "We will, together." He took my hand. "But first, I need to tell you something." "What?" "Your father. The questions he was asking before he died." Kaylin's jaw tightened. "He came to me 3 weeks before his heart attack. Told me he thought someone in my organization was feeding information to the Corvinos. He had a list of suspects. Natasha's name was on it." My chest constricted. "What did you do?" I told him I'd look into it, but then he died, and I thought the stress of the life had finally caught up with him. That his heart just gave out. His expression darkened. "I should have investigated. Should have listened. She killed him to protect herself. Yes. And I let her get away with it because I was too blind to see what was right in front of me. You didn't know. I should have. He was my father's friend. Your father. He deserved better." We stood there in the heavy silence of shared grief and shared rage. Then his phone buzzed. "We have her," his second-in-command said. "She tried to run, made it halfway to the airport. Bring her to the estate, the private room in the basement, and double the guard on the Vale family. If Natasha sent any messages before you grabbed her, the Corvinos might already know she's been compromised." He hung up and looked at me. What happens now? I asked. Now we make her answer for what she's done. And then we end this war. The private room in the basement was exactly what I expected. Concrete walls, a single steel table, chairs bolted to the floor. The kind of place where questions got answered one way or another. Natasha sat in one of the chairs, her hands zip-tied behind her back. Her perfect composure finally cracked. When she saw me standing beside Kaylin, genuine surprise flickered across her face. You told him, not a question, an accusation. I showed him the evidence, I said. Evidence can be fabricated, manipulated. Not when it comes with email headers and timestamp metadata and financial transfer records that all point to the same conclusion. Kaylin's voice was cold, controlled, but I could feel the rage underneath it. You killed my father. You killed her father. You've been feeding the Corvinos information for years to keep the conflict going and keep yourself indispensable. I made you indispensable, Natasha shot back. Without me, you'd still be fumbling through your father's mistakes. I built your intelligence network. I streamlined your operations. I made you into the leader you are today. By murdering my father? By removing an obstacle who would have destroyed everything. He was paranoid, brutal, unstable. He was making enemies faster than you could count. The Corvinos would have killed him eventually anyway. I just expedited the process. And Aurelia's father? I asked, my voice shaking. What was your excuse for him? Natasha's eyes cut to me. He was asking questions, getting too close. He would have exposed everything. So you had him killed. I made sure he had a heart attack. It's not the same thing. You murdered him. My control finally snapped. He was a good man trying to protect his family, and you killed him because he was inconvenient. He was weak, just like you're weak. Just like everyone in this world is weak, except for people like me who are willing to do what needs to be done. Kaylin's hand settled on my shoulder, grounding me. Here's what's going to happen, he said to Natasha. You're going to give me the names of every Corvino contact you've dealt with, every piece of information you've sold, every operation you've compromised, and then you're going to disappear. Disappear, Natasha laughed. You're going to kill me. Don't pretend this is anything else. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to do something worse. He pulled out a folder and dropped it on the table. These are copies of every piece of evidence Aurelia found. Financial transfers, emails, proof that you murdered Moretti Sr. and Vale Sr. I'm sending this to every family in Chicago, every organization that does business with us, every contact you've ever cultivated. Natasha's face went white. You'll be a pariah, Kaylin continued. No one will hire you. No one will trust you. No one will even acknowledge your existence. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, knowing that the Corvinos are looking for the person who sold them bad information. Knowing that every enemy I've ever made will see you as a potential asset or a liability to eliminate. You can't, I can, and I will, unless you cooperate fully. Give me everything, and I'll give you 48 hours to get out of the country. Refuse, and I release the evidence immediately. Natasha stared at him, her carefully constructed mask finally crumbling. I loved you, she said. I did everything for you. You did everything for yourself. There's a difference. She's using you, can't you see that? The loophole clause, the 1-year plan. She was always going to leave you. I know about the loophole, Kaylin said quietly. I've known from the beginning. My heart stopped. What? I whispered. He glanced at me. I read the pact too, Aurelia. Every clause, including 17. I knew you found your exit strategy. Then why? Because I was betting I could make you want to stay. He turned back to Natasha. And I was right. So you can take your manipulation and your justifications and your delusions about what we were, and you can get the hell out of my life, permanently. He nodded to his men, and they hauled Natasha to her feet. 48 hours, she said. That's all I get. That's more than you deserve. They dragged her out, and I was left alone with Kaylin in the concrete room, my mind reeling. You knew, I said, about the loophole, this whole time. Yes. And you let me think. That I didn't know? Yes. Because I wanted you to choose me without the pressure of knowing I knew about your escape plan. He stepped closer. I wanted it to be real, Aurelia. Not coerced, not manipulated. Real. It is real. Is it? Or are you just saying that because you're grateful I believed you about Natasha? Because you're caught up in the adrenaline of almost dying? I grabbed his shirt and pulled him down to me, kissing him hard enough that our teeth clacked together. When I pulled back, we were both breathing hard. Does that feel fake to you? I demanded. No. Good. Because I meant what I said upstairs. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. Not because of the pact or the Corvinos or some loophole. Because I want to. His hands came up to cup my face. The pregnancy ultimatum is something we'll figure out together. Maybe we find another loophole. Maybe we call the Corvinos bluff. I stopped. Maybe we just see what happens. I'm not ready to get pregnant on a timeline dictated by our enemies. But I'm also not ruling it out. Eventually, when we're ready, when it's our choice. His expression softened. You're sure? I'm terrified. But yes, I'm sure. He kissed me again, slower this time, deeper. When we finally broke apart, I was trembling. We still need to deal with the Corvinos, I said. We do, but now we have leverage. He pulled out his phone. Natasha's been feeding them information, which means she knows things they don't want exposed. We use that. Force them to back off or risk having their own secrets revealed. Will it work? It has to, because I'm not losing you, not to them, not to anyone. The next morning, Kalen called Salvatore Corvino. I sat beside him in his office, listening to the conversation on speaker. Moretti, Salvatore said. So soon after our last discussion? I hope you're calling to tell me good news about your wife's condition. I'm calling to offer you a deal, Kalen said. My former assistant, Natasha Volkov, has been selling information to your organization for years. Information about my operations, my weaknesses, my father's schedule the night he died. Silence. She's given me a full accounting of every transaction, Kalen continued. Every piece of intelligence she sold. Every illegal operation she helped facilitate. I'm sure the FBI would be very interested in this information, unless, of course, we come to an agreement. What kind of agreement? You back off, permanently. No more ultimatums about heirs. No more threats against my wife's family. You reinstate the territorial boundaries and honor the original accords our fathers signed. In exchange, I keep Natasha's evidence buried. And if I refuse? Then I release everything. Your money laundering operations, your connections to certain politicians, the building code violations that should have shut down half your real estate holdings. All of it. Kalen's voice was steel. You'll survive, but you'll be weakened. And every other family in this city will see the cracks. Another long silence. You play a dangerous game, Moretti. I learned from the best. Do we have a deal? What about the pact? The requirement for an heir? That's between me and my wife, not you. I heard Salvatore breathe. A long, considering sound. Fine, he said finally. We have a deal. But Moretti, if you ever cross us again, you'll do what? Threaten my wife's family. Send your daughter to reminisce about old times. I'm done being threatened, Salvatore. From now on, we're equals. Or we're enemies. Choose. Equals, Salvatore said. But the words sounded like broken glass. For now. He hung up. Kalen set down the phone and looked at me. It's over, he said. Is it? The immediate threat? Yes. The Corvinos will back off. They have to. Natasha's evidence is too damaging. He reached for my hand. We bought ourselves time and space to figure out what we want this to be. What do you want it to be? Everything, he said simply. I want everything with you. My breath caught. That's a lot of pressure. Then we'll take it slow. One day at a time, one choice at a time. He pulled me into his lap, and I let myself relax against him for the first time since the wedding. No more secrets. No more exit strategies. Just us. Just us, I agreed. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. You should check that, I said. It can wait. Kalen, Aurelia, he tilted my chin up. For once in my life, the business can wait. Because right now, the only thing that matters is you. The phone kept buzzing. I grabbed it and checked the screen, then froze. "It's from your accountant," I said. Subject line, Westside Industrial Final Audit. Kalen took the phone and opened the email. Then he started laughing, a genuine surprise sound I'd never heard from him before. "What?" I asked. Westside Industrial wasn't just taking money from my father. It was taking money from the Corvinos, too. Natasha was playing both sides, selling information to everyone. He showed me the screen. When we shut down the company, we triggered an automatic audit, and the forensic accountant just found proof that Salvatore Corvino has been using Westside to move money illegally for 3 years. So now you have even more leverage. So now I have insurance. If the Corvinos ever come after us again, I can bury them." He set down the phone. "Thanks to you. I didn't do anything. You found the pattern. You connected the dots. You saved us." His hand came up to cup my face. "You saved me. We saved each other." "Yeah, we did." He kissed me, and this time there was no urgency, no desperation, just certainty and choice. 3 months later, I stood in the office, our office now, reviewing a contract for a new joint venture between the Vale firm and Moretti Industries. Legitimate, above board. The kind of deal that would make both our families real money without the shadow of violence. Lucian knocked on the door. "Leah, you have a minute?" "Always." He came in, looking older somehow, more serious. He'd cut his hair, started dressing differently, started asking real questions instead of hero worshipping. "I wanted to apologize," he said. "For the Corvino thing, for being an idiot. You were trying to help. I was trying to be something I'm not. And I almost got everyone killed." He met my eyes. Kalen told me what Natasha did, what she really did. And I realized power isn't about guns or threats. It's about being smart enough to see what other people miss. Like you're doing now. Like you taught me, he smiled slightly. I applied to college, business and finance. I want to learn to do what you do. Build things instead of breaking them. My throat tightened. "I'm proud of you, Luce." "Yeah? Yeah." He hugged me, quick and awkward, and left. Kalen appeared in the doorway a moment later. "Dinner's ready. Your mother made enough food for an army." "She always does." "Are you coming?" I looked at the contract, at the office, at the life we were building together. "In a minute, I just need to finish this clause." He crossed the room and looked over my shoulder at the screen. "You're stalling," he said. "I'm being thorough. You're avoiding family dinner because you're nervous." I turned in my chair to face him. "I'm not nervous." "Liar." He pulled me to my feet. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's actually good. Better than good." I took a breath, which is terrifying, because I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. There's no other shoe. The Corvinos backed off. Natasha's gone. The alliance is stable. We're safe. For now. For now is all we ever get, Aurelia. That's the deal. He tipped my chin up. "But I promise you, whatever comes next, we face it together." "Together," I agreed. "Now come eat before your mother sends Sarah to drag you out of here." He started to pull me toward the door. "Kalen?" "Yeah? I love you." The words hung between us, the first time I'd said them out loud. His expression softened into something that made my chest ache. "I know," he said. "I've known since you called me instead of running. Since you chose to stay even when Natasha gave you an out." He kissed my forehead. "I love you too. More than I thought I could love anyone." "That's very romantic for a mafia boss." "Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to maintain." I laughed, and he pulled me out of the office and down the stairs to where my family was waiting. To where our life was waiting. Not perfect, not safe. Not the life I'd planned when I stood at that altar and almost raised my own hand in objection. But mine, ours, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Later that night, after dinner and laughter and Lucian challenging Kalen to chess and losing badly, we lay in bed together, the house finally quiet. The pregnancy ultimatum I set into the darkness. The Corvinos backed off, but the pact still technically requires, forget the pact. "What?" Kalen rolled onto his side to face me. "I mean it. Forget what the pact says. Forget what anyone expects. If we have children, I want it to be because we both want them, not because some contract from 30 years ago says we should. You mean that? Every word. His hand found mine under the covers. I spent so long honoring my father's promises that I forgot to make my own. But here's my promise to you. No more decisions based on what we're supposed to do. Only what we want to do. What if what I want keeps changing? Then we change with it. I turned to face him fully, our foreheads touching in the dark. I'm glad I married you, I said. Even though you had to? Especially because I had to. Because it forced me to see past everything I thought I knew about this world. About you. I kissed him softly. I would have missed this otherwise. Missed us. No, you wouldn't have. I would have found you anyway. That's very arrogant. That's very true. I'm a very determined man, Aurelia. When I want something, I don't give up. And you wanted me? From the moment you started arguing with me about the pact. From the moment you demanded your conditions and refused to play dumb. His hand came up to cup my face. You were fire and steel and brilliance, and I knew right then I was in trouble. Good trouble or bad trouble. The best trouble. I kissed him again, deeper this time, and felt him smile against my mouth. We should sleep, he said without conviction. We should. Neither of us moved. Outside, snow had started to fall, the first of the season. Through the window, I could see the lake turning white, the estate grounds transforming into something clean and new. A fresh start, not invisible anymore, not powerless, just seen, just chosen, just exactly where I was meant to be. Narrator, your feedback really helps me make these even better for you. Thank you for letting my stories keep you company. It truly means more than you know.